Hi everybody, this is Dr. Beth Ann, and welcome to Poetry in Perspective. This is where I read a passage from one of my books and then I share some perspective on it. And I'm going to flip-flop that today and start with some perspective and then move on to reading the passage. Today would have been my brother's 43rd birthday, and you never know how you're going to feel on these days, right? You just don't know. Like, obviously today I must be in an okay place because I'm making this video. I wouldn't be doing that if I needed to just be super self-honoring and some part of me needed space. But I mostly just have this profound gratitude today. And I feel like anniversaries and birthdays and big days for me now are sort of just these mile markers. And what they offer me is a mirror, I guess, a lens to look into and say, where are you now with this? How has your relationship to loss changed? How has your relationship to grief changed? How has your relationship to your own timeline changed? And I never know what I'm going to see in the mirror, you know. I mean, I think it will just keep evolving for the rest of my life because we keep changing, you know, and so our losses, like, they change with us as we go along our timelines and we experience growth and change and all of that. Our relationship to whatever it is that we would say grief or loss that intersects with their timeline, that starts to shift as well. But I just found a lot of gratitude this time and this awareness that when I was going through the worst parts of grief for Brent, part of what I realized as I was coming out the other side of that mess, and you cannot shortcut the mess. I want to be really clear on that. You can't spiritually bypass it or skip over it. You really have to go through it. But part of what I really felt as I was coming out the other side was this massive inner strength that I was carrying my brother. Literally, I'd carried the weight of my grief. I'd carried the weight of my loss. I'd carried the weight of what it meant to love him. That was the cost of loving him. My grief was the price that I paid. I'd carried all of it. And as I started to gain a little bit of momentum again, and I was still going, I had this profound sense of like, wow, you're really strong. And I would offer you that today, even if you're on a grief journey and you don't feel strong. Grief is a holy journey. I know it doesn't feel like it, but brave people walk it. Maybe they crawl through it. Maybe they curl up and die for a while and can't keep going, and it's a long time before they feel like they have movement. But grievers are courageous people because nobody wants to be in that dark terrain. I'm so glad it's 3.5 years later and I'm not there anymore. So you get thrust into it. You have so much courage just to keep going. So you keep going however you need and do whatever you need to do for you. For me, that meant keeping really open-hearted and staying open to my emotional process because that is who I am in this world. I am an empath, I am an open heart, and I am on the journey of listening to my heart and listening to spirit. So I chose to navigate my journey that way. And I had a newfound sense of purpose afterwards, and this newfound sense of don't back down when life gets hard. And I had such massive courage to make these big, scary, brave choices because I had been through this wreckage and I was still going. And I felt like what I really did in that time was take the ingredients of love that I had with my brother, because that's why we grieve so hard, right? Because we've loved. And I felt like I took those ingredients into me and let them be this alchemical mix that began to transform me and make me a deeper, braver, bigger person. So I'm going to drop into the poem I wrote now. It's a short one. It's called New Shell. This is from Lamentations of the Sea, 111 passages on grief, love, loss, and letting go. New shell. I wonder when people look at me if they see I am just an old shell, with fire in my eyes and fury in my fingers to keep my seeds warm. There is a new world growing in my soul. Soon it will crack me open. I'm anxious to see what I'll become. It's been almost 3.5 years since I wrote those words, and I still feel like I'm seeing who I'm becoming. But that initial cracking and reopening, as I said, was somebody who had a lot more courage and integrity in their life. And because of losing Brent, I moved myself to an island and I stepped into my spiritual calling and closed my practice as a psychologist back in Alaska. You know, because of losing Brent, I had such growth come in of my spiritual gifts and such an awareness of those gifts. And now I use those in service to others, and I'm able to teach on those. Brent left me with such a profound gift and an ongoing sense of his presence. You know, because of losing Brent, I developed this really transcendent perspective on life. When I was through the worst of it, I was in almost like this grace stage for a while. I was just so glad to be out of the cloud of grief. And I really started to get how profoundly brief life is and what a gift it is to be human. And what a gift it is to even have like the crummy human stuff happen that doesn't feel good, because if we're going through that, then it means we're still here. And being here on earth means that we have the possibility to self-actualize and to become our biggest selves and to shine a light so bright that it helps awaken the light in others. And all of those things came because of my loss. I'm still living what that means, and I'm still living who Brent is to me. But I have passed through his 43rd birthday this year, what would have been his 43rd birthday, with this knowledge that he is now so deeply part of who I am in my journey, that I live him and breathe him and share him in so much of what I do, even if I'm not directly talking about him. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful. So that was this week's Poetry and Perspective. I'm going to pause there and wish everybody aloha, and I will see you back next week.